All right. So, you asked me if I could show you a little bit about rebinding books. Now, appreciate your patience. It took me a couple days to get to it. Hopefully, it's still helpful. Now, it depends on your project. Most books, I maintain a library, research library, different things at home, and most books, I try to keep them in the same condition that they arrived in or make them better. Like a lot of them, I'll create a new or I'll laminate their dust jacket and adhere it so that it preserves them. And that's, the vast majority of books I try to keep in that sort of condition. But depending on your project and depending on your research needs and depending on what the book is and how common it is, those sorts of things, you may want to do other things with it. So, for instance, in the post above, someone showed a book being split in half for easier carrying. This is one I did that with. So it's a DK book, and it was kind of an inexpensive one, and I wanted to split the pre-Mesozoic stuff from the other stuff, so that it would be easy to look at these separately for the research I was doing at the time. So I split that, and then, or rather, in this case, I took it to a printer. It was like a FedEx Kinko's or like a university printer or something like that. Showed them where I wanted it split. They split it. They used a machine to cut the binding, and then they spiral bound it. That's probably the easiest thing to do, is just take it to a FedEx Kinko's or to a university printer or some other place like that. Lots of places do commercial spiral binding, comb binding. Here's another example of commercial binding for a paper. Had that comb bound. If you want to do it yourself, though, there's various options. When I do it myself, it's not that fancy. Most of the time I go with, turning it into a 3-ring binder. So here's an example, how computers work. Open. I wanted it to be able to stay open while I read it, and so peeled it apart and hole punched it with a regular 3-hole punch and turned it into a binder. Same with this one, form of the head and neck, art research, anatomy research. So nice thing about this is, say you want to look at a section, more than one set of it at once. So let's say I wanted to look at the skeleton of the head and neck, but also wanted to look at the musculature. So I would open it up and be like, okay, I've got this on the side. And the pages are numbered, so it's easy to put them back. This also makes it much easier for scanning, and that's a big reason that I do this, to scan, to be able to build other resources. Show you this binder. I've got dozens of these books, hundreds of pages of scans for research that I've done, whether it's scans from books or photographs that I've taken or stuff downloaded from the internet, for art reference, for museum artwork that I do. Call these bone books. So you see this kind of blurs the line between the book you find and research tools that you create. You can also use report covers, and there's various types of those. So this is more of a hobby thing. Ninja Turtles comic book, right? Omnibus, bound. I was wanting to do some scanning stuff to make some videos and make some memes and those sorts of things, but it's difficult to scan out of something like this. So the volume 1 of that series, what I did was I took it apart, and each individual comic book in it, I separated into its own book, just as if they'd been purchased individually. Here's the original cover in the back of it. And these are report covers, slide clip report report covers called, I think that's what they're called. And it's just this plastic cover that you then align your pages inside it and then put your clip on. And then all of a sudden, it's like a little book. You got it like that. So I started doing that with these Turtles comics, but then they were available digitally, so I started doing the work that I was doing with digital screenshots instead. Again, for those commentary videos and things that I'm developing. Then there's stuff that is not available digitally. So I'm going to show you. Again, back to the Ninja Turtle hobby stuff. These are Ninja Turtle newspaper strips from the 90s that another fan scanned and had produced in print-on-demand sort of situation. These you can't find digitally. You can only find them through this print situation. So I started the process of taking this apart so that it could be scanned, and then I'll find a good way to rebind it. With these, instead of 3-hole punching, since a 3-hole punch will likely infringe on the artwork, or impinge on it, you know, I will probably use plastic sheet covers like I do with these, slide those in and make a binder. But for the time being, it's being held with a clip. So this one's been pulled apart. This one has not yet. And you can see how that was. This is a regular sort of binding. And I will show you. Some people are going to cringe when I do this, but I promise this is for the purposes of preservation and not for the purposes of destruction. So, softbound books are pretty easy to be taken apart. I'm going to show you this other softbound book that I will not be taking apart, but you see it's got this glue, and it's got pages that are folded in half and then glued to the back. And then, you know, sometimes there's also staples. And this is actually, with a softbound book, fairly easy to pull apart. So you watch that. See how that happens? How that splits? And you'll notice up at the front here, this pulls apart fairly easily. You want to be careful so that you don't actually rip the pages within. But you pull that back, and you pull on the other side as well. And you have the cover off, which would in this case, become the cover of the binder. Fun fact, since this is the British version of the Ninja Turtles comic, and in the early 90s it was illegal to show nunchucks or say the word ninja in children's media, they called it Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles instead of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And you can see here in this graphic, all of the turtles have their weapons except for Michelangelo. He's just like holding up his hands for no reason because they took out the weapon for censorship in England in the early 90s. Kind of a fun fact. Anyways, so that's the cover that would then become part of the binder after the archiving scanning is finished. And that's a fairly common thing too for archive scanning of books, to take off the covers and feed things into a scanner for a little bit of destruction for long-term preservation, if that makes sense. So you go in here and it shows, and I've already, this book, it didn't have numbers on the pages, so I hand numbered them first to make sure that I wouldn't lose track of the numbers. Then you go through here and you'll notice, and I don't know if it's going to be visible up there, but books are actually bound. I'm gonna show you with another piece of paper here, just a blank piece of paper. They tend to be, you see one page and it's not really one page. It's going to be folded over, and there's going to be a page, right? With this part being bound in the back. And then you have another page that's folded in the same way. And then nested inside it. So you see, open up this page and puts another one in. They're nested inside. And they'll do this a few times and still starts to get a little bit funky shaped, and they'll stop, and they'll arrange these pages in these little mini booklets within the book. And then there's glue put on the back edge that's put along the binding, and that binds it together as a book. So we split the just the covers off of this, but now we're going to find, you want to go through and you want to find a place that isn't in the middle of a booklet, but that is between booklets, and you can kind of like filter through to find out. So that way you're less likely to create damage as you're peeling that apart. So so you notice that there was no paper to tear there because I picked the spot between the booklets that are glued together. And you do the next one and the next one. You can kind of feel it out. There we go. Is that between? Yep, that's between booklets. And pull that out. And eventually, you get to the point where you've got individual pages, and pulls out, and there's a little bit of a raggedy edge, but not much. It actually looks pretty dang good. If you've got enough of a margin, you can use a 3-hole punch and put that in a binder, or if not, then you can use another method. And again, when I'm done scanning with these for projects, then I'll probably use sheet protectors so that everything is preserved as well as possible. Again, sometime soon I'm going to be doing a video on the history of Ninja Turtle newspaper comics, and that's why I'm doing this. But now, I was going to show you. I'm not gonna pull either of these apart. Hardbound books or case-bound books, they're usually very similar in the way they're bound. They've just got a hard cover around them. So you see on the back of this book how you've got the glue, and each of these little booklets is kind of glued into the back. Or, they call this a ribbon along the back for the binding. It's the same here. There's actually a soft-bound book inside of the hardcover book. You see this little ribbon? And if I peel this back a little bit, you can kind of see the glue and the way that the pages are attached in a very similar way. So if you wanted to take apart a hardcover book, you would kind of go through the same process. So, but the only difference is, first, you would take an X-Acto knife or box cutter, what have you, click, and see how that's separated in there? You would go through and you would cut the paper that is joining the hard cover to the soft cover inside. You would then take the cover off and then remove the soft cover book from within the hard cover. Then you go back to the thing that we did before of how to take apart your initial soft cover book. So went through a few methods. There's quite a few things you can do with the printers. You can have things spiral bound. You can have things comb bound. There can even be, soft bound or case bound at those sorts of places. Or you can do stuff at home and do, just use a 3-ring binder. If you've got a small book, so like here's a small book on cult psychology, where it was going to be too small for the big binders, but I wanted to be able to use it in a binder for more in-depth study. If you really want to get some mileage out of a book, it's a little bit easier to do it that way. But a regular 3-hole punch wasn't going to work for this size of binder, and I didn't have a small 3-hole punch. So what I did was I went through and I clamped it down, and I just used a drill to make my own holes so that it'd be a custom size here, and also clipped off these edges because it was having issues turning pages. So those are just a few ideas. You can come up with your own. You'll find different ways to do these things. There's other ways that these things can be used. Like here I've got an old a Trapper Keeper they've released. Use these for, notes, doing sketches, bind them in like that. I used to take sketchbooks into FedEx Kinkos and just do a spiral bind in there, and those are a lot cheaper than buying a sketchbook from the store. It was like a fifth of the price, something like that. So a little bit of DIY slash DI at the store stuff. So yeah, I hope that helps for your research and project purposes. Take the best care of your books that you can, and also don't feel bad about modifying other books to help with your particular needs. So good luck.